Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday, and we're doing a reunion tour today. We've got Ryan Anderson in the house, and we are coming at you with a great topic. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. You probably already know. But anyways, I'm going to let Ryan introduce himself, and then we're going to get stuck in. So Ryan, hello, and tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Gillian, it's so good to be back. And hello to everyone else out there. Can I start by apologizing for not looking like you this time? I think, I think, as you know from conversations we've had elsewhere, that we've moved house a few times recently, and I cannot find my wigs. So I toyed with the idea. Do I do that again? It's like, nah. So I'm just going to hide my hair completely this time. So I am Ryan. If you don't know me, hello. Banish boring is the thing. It's kind of the tagline that I've come up with in recent history, because when I gave thought to the sort of stuff that I do, something that really drives me is trying to, it's not necessarily trying to be different, but it's not being the same as everyone else. So, and I like wordplay. I write songs. I like to play with words and rhyming and everything. So banish boring and stop the snoring. And so that is my tagline. That's me on LinkedIn at the moment. I don't know if we're on again in a year's time, Gillian, if that's exactly what I'm going to be saying then, but it is for now.
I love it. I love it. And that coincidentally is our topic today. I'm glad your lawyers have not reached out and sued me for taking your statement, but banish boring and stop the snoring on LinkedIn. I love the wordplay. I loved how you did all that. And I thought that is a brilliant topic. And I love that we could talk about this today. So I'm going to kick it off, Ryan, by saying, okay, hopefully, you don't consider my content boring. I always try to keep, things fresh. And I know your stuff is beyond fresh. Your stuff is just like Purple Cow incarnate. Purple Cow, by the way, anybody, is Seth Godin, and about having content that stands out like a purple cow would do. So to you, Ryan, why don't you lead us off with talking about what is boring content to you?
Okay, so we live in an age when, unfortunately, it's very easy to offend people when that's not what anyone, I think, is necessarily trying to do. So I mean no offense if I find something boring. Let's use the word boring just to kind of say, like, look, it's not grabbing attention. Okay, let's think of it that way. Because there's some really great, valuable content out there. But for me, if I'm looking through the feed, and I see just text after text after text after text. Oh, look, there's that selfie photo. I've seen that person use that same photo. They do it, everyone. I mean, I know the same photos and all that sort of stuff. And I'm thinking, it's good content. I know that person and I know that it's valuable content, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't get boring. I found this myself, right? People, when I started singing the parody songs that I do, and this may partly be algorithm related because it goes back like nearly 3 years now. But at first, it was almost as if people were like, we've never seen anything like this on LinkedIn. And then over time, people are like, oh, okay, we've got used to seeing him do that now. Perhaps it's not such an amazing thing to see anymore. So the thing is, boring, even great content can become boring, which is almost more monotonous. Seen it before. It's like, what if you mixed it up a little bit? What is going to stop that scroll? So for me, boring content is it just keeps looking the same. There's nothing different about it. And I personally, I just do not like walls of text. I really struggle. I mean, I put one out myself actually yesterday. I had to edit it just to get it to fit because it exceeded the was it 5,000 characters or whatever it is. So I am even trying to do things that don't look and sound the same every time. But I think that is a key. Is for me, is if it just constantly looks the same and that same isn't attention grabbing, because it's one thing if it looks the same and it's attention grabbing, right? But if it's not attention grabbing and you have to read it to find out what is good about this, like you have to really make an effort, so Is there that hook at the top? At least that's got to grab your attention. But beyond that, is it delivering in those first few lines? And so for me, one of the easiest ways of doing that is to have something that visually as well grabs your attention and perhaps stops the scroll. So yeah, boring is to repeat, as I'm repeating right now, is if it just looks the same all the time, and that's not particularly exciting.
I love that. And, you just made me, it kind of opened up the topic in my head, because originally I just thought of the content itself, that one thing, is it boring or not boring? Just a litmus test. And I'm the same with you. If I just see something like a newsletter, if a newsletter is just nothing but text, I can't read it all. I just get to a point where it's like, you didn't break this up with anything, a graphic, a video, a meme, a GIF, whatever. But it's also too, whether you're using variety in your content. And I know I love video, but I don't just do video. I don't just do lives. I try to, piece it up, because I know people learn different things, but also too, what are you talking about? Because if you're just talking about the same thing over and over again, and I'm not going to name any names, but there are some people where I just go, is that the only thing that guy ever talks about? Like, he just talks about one thing, and I'm finding it boring, because he's just selling his stuff. He uses a variety of posts to sell the same topic. And that is boring to me. And it's like, sometimes, that's why you want to just do a picture of, like, I'm at the library today. I did one like that a couple of weeks ago. That has nothing to do with what I do, but it was interesting and different, and it got a lot of response. So even topic change can mix things up again.
That's actually a great point, because I think we can get caught in this little vacuum of what we do and how we think, okay, because I think most people, at least those people who are trying to, they're making the effort in their content, they think, okay, this is my thing, this is my lane. I want to stay in my lane, and I want my posts to be valuable, all that sort of stuff. And they're thinking about obviously getting clients if that's what they're looking for, and all that sort of stuff. But they're so focused on their message. So if for example, if you're an inspirational speaker, and your thing is just for people to feel good, or to whatever it happens to be, they all start to sound the same. All the messages start to sound the same. So I think that's going to happen, no matter what. I think everything is going to start to sound the same. Take a look at the procedural dramas, or action movies and everything. It's like, there's a man with a very specific set of skills, and everything, and he can kill someone, but we're going to call this movie Beehive, we're going to call this one John Wick, we're going to call this one Taken, and so I think we're all used to something about the same but looking slightly different. So that brings variety. But I do think that in this kind of space, sharing the library photo, sharing a work setup, like, this is what my desk looks like at the moment, what does yours look like? Or, this is the stuff you don't see in my office. Or, I'm out going for a walk today, and I just thought I'd share that. I see people, I know what they do, but they share that they're out, and they share about well-being and various things. So I think, you've got your lane, but as an individual outside of LinkedIn, we are multifaceted people. And I think sharing those aspects of our lives within reason, and I think with some degree of strategy sometimes, but it actually, I think it's going to help us. Because our audience will either think, oh, I like that about you, or you're going to put something out there that they don't like, and maybe that's a good thing, because we don't want to waste their time. So if we show people what we're really like, that's going to attract the right people and repel the wrong people.
I love that. And I think that that's maybe what catches people into that trap of, I don't want to move outside my lane, because they're like, oh, it could be risky. It could be risky. People may hate libraries, and they don't want to talk to me because I like libraries. But in essence, if that's a part of the core of who I am, then maybe I need to repel the people that hate libraries. I don't know who hates libraries, but there could be some people out there. And I think that we have to be like that, because we don't want to be like I'm thinking of hunters. I don't know why I'm thinking of hunters, but I'm thinking of like, if you go hunting, I don't hunt, but if you go hunting, you wear camouflage, right? Because you want to kind of like fit in. But on the same token, you don't want to get hit by other hunters. So you put on an orange safety vest so that people don't hit you. So, you know, I don't even know why I brought that up. It's just random thoughts.
Well, hunting in the UK, you know, there's the sort of outlawed, I don't know if it's 100% outlawed. I can't remember if it's regional or if it's national, but outlawed fox hunting, and they wear bright red. You know, so I guess that's you know, there's something to be learned there when you go hunting. But then, of course, that's for the reason that you know, you don't hit each other. You don't want to stand out to the animal. But going back to what you're saying about hunting, sorry, did you actually finish your point about that?
Yeah, I'm finished. I don't know where I was going with that, but that's okay. Yeah, you build off of it.
Gosh, well, I don't know. I mean, what's the segue from hunting? I mean, ultimately, you were talking about who hates libraries, and maybe you're talking about who hates hunting, because that is quite a thing, isn't it? I mean, then you get into, because that, I think there are very strong dividing lines around certain things, particularly in the States. And so, yeah, but I think that's the thing. You just, that's who you are, and there are enough people in this world who are similar to us, who like what we like, and I just think it makes for a better experience for us and for them. Because I think the danger is, you know, I know organizations where they have multiple personas that they're trying to target, and there is, other than having a pulse, there is hardly anything, there's very little similar between, say, that persona and that persona, but they don't want to leave any money on the table. So they try to reach everyone, and their content is very bland because they're trying to speak 5 languages in one, so to speak, you know, as in all the nuance and all of the stuff about these different people. And you put out that content, and persona 1 sees it and thinks, I don't want that. That's not what I'm here for. You know, and then persona 2 is kind of similar, whereas had you gone a bit more towards persona 1, you might have lost 2, but you really earn 1's attention. And so I think that's how we have to think about things sometimes, is that, yes, we can speak to a broader category of people in some cases. You know, like we both love video. So that's great. Like, so we know video's at the top. Live streaming is a form of video, you know, and we can podcast from an audio perspective, which is a subset of that, and all that sort of stuff. So you can go down, and you can be broad, but you've got to decide kind of like, what's the top point, and you know, where do you start? Because if with which audience? Because if you can say, well, I'm only going to be talking about podcasting, well, then you're going to not be able to reach all the people who are really interested in video. Mm-hmm. But if you talk to the people about video, and you mention how the audio can be repurposed for podcasting, well, you got them too. So I think that there is a lot of thinking around that. But of course, there are arguments to be made for, you know what, though, I really don't care about video. It's all about the audio. So that's just a means to an end. So I think people just really need to think, how niched down are they prepared to go? You know, at one point I was pitching myself as the guy who writes these unique songs for people. Now, I know that in the world, there are enough people who would want that, but I am in front of a tiny percentage of people compared with other audiences. So for me, that's something that can't be my focus right now. It's part of what I do. It just can't be the top thing, because I don't have a big enough audience for it. So I do think that when we're creating our content and trying not to be boring, we do have to think about the size of our audience and what is going to attract the right people within that audience. And at some point, you might choose to give up on some of your content and say, you know what, that's just, it's like the whole 80-20 principle, I think.
Yep.
You know, I'm putting all of this time into that content that's only doing this for me, less time into that. So maybe actually this is better than that. I don't know about all of that, because I am a bit of am I a one-trick pony? I don't know. But I know what I like, right? I mean, I know that I love video and I love music. And so I will always find a way to bring things back to that. you know,
Love it.
whatever it happens to be. And that's why, like in the whole Banish boring thing, I'm in the process of developing a framework that takes from music, the structure of music and how you make up a song, you know, the different layers and tracks, and how that can translate into principles that can help be a guide for someone when they're thinking through creating content that's not boring.
I love that. Well, tell you what, let's pop and check in with our audience and then come back because I want to hear about that framework. So let's see who we've got joining us today. So we have Jeff Young going to try the front row on the LinkedIn side today. So he's jumping from YouTube and LinkedIn. There he is. He made it over to LinkedIn. LinkedIn lives are never boring. We're always wondering if they're going to work. And true to form. That's actually why we're both wearing headphones today, because I decided to match Ryan because I couldn't get my microphone to work. So we always have to do that with live. Marcia says, what's happening, Gillian and Ryan? We have John, evening both. I was here to see Ryan's wig disappointing. Of course, we could say that would be boring if you showed up and it's like, oh, every time he comes on the show, all he does is wear the same thing. So, you know, again, it's novel, but is it novel if you keep doing the same thing? So, you know, just something to think about it.
Exactly. You got to practice what you preach, right? It's like the Meet the Parents movies. If you watched the first one and the second one, they tried the exact same gags, you know, as like, guys, it worked in the first one. It's not funny the second time round.
No. And yet something like the hero's journey as a theme, you would think we'd be bored with every movie, you know, Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, you know, you can go on and on and on. Harry Potter, they all take that same theme, but they do it differently. So we actually are creatures of habit. We like things with a formula. We just want to see it kind of changed up a little bit. So Marcia's given us thumbs up on the title. She loves the title. And Annette says,
Great.
woohoo, found you too. So why did I not get the notice that we were live? I don't know. That's very interesting that you didn't get the notice. And then Jeff says, maybe it's just LinkedIn. So enough said. And Lisa says, evening. So we have lots of people that are joining us today. We won't keep going through all the comments. We'll be sure to, take everybody later. But so Ryan, tell us a little bit about this framework of yours, because I think that's very interesting, because again, sometimes you have to, like the hero's journey, you want to have some sort of structure so you're not all over the place. So tell us about your framework.
Sure. Well, I mean, you got to love a good framework, haven't you? And I think if John hasn't absolutely abandoned us because of my lack of hair, he has in his book, Content DNA, which is definitely a book people should get if they haven't already. He has an acronym, CHAIR, and that's great. In fact, I could do with sitting on one of those because I'm standing, but I'm gonna power through for the rest of this. So yeah, mine is obviously with the whole Banish boring. I thought, how do I get this to fit with Banish? So it's a work in progress, but where we are at the moment with this is thinking about the post I did yesterday or the day before with music being in layers. You begin with so B is for base or foundation. Now, the great thing about the letter B here is that it's base as in, you build on a base, but also there's like bass. Hello, can you go? All right. So there's beat, there's bass, and there's beat. So behind a piece of music, you tend to have a driving beat. Okay, unless we're talking classical music and that sort of thing, but there tends to be a driving beat. So when it comes to creating your content, you've got to, first of all, it gets almost boring talking about finding your why, but establish like almost like a personal brand statement perhaps, and help that be the base. So underneath your content, you've got a foundation that almost like a mission statement, that when you anything you create, does it fit with that? Okay, so that there's your foundation, your base. Next, A is for attract, which is like the melody that pulls people in to your song. So if you think of any piece of music that tends to do really well, there's something very catchy about it. And so melody-wise, so with your content, you want to think about like, what is your unique selling proposition, your USP, and that forms sort of your melody that is going to help. Now, we're just sort of rushing through this. I'm developing more of a workshop, but this is the sort of stuff that I would talk through with the client, like just taking some time to deep dive into these areas and working through stuff together. N is for nuance, and that is playing on the harmony that there is. So for me, I've been working on a Taylor Swift's Shake It Off song, and it's the most I've done track-wise. I've got 20, something like 21, 22 vocal tracks, different things happening in different places, more than the original, because I'm just, I'll hear something else. I think, you know what, that's a little space, put something in there and do something over there. So with your content, you want to think about how you can mix things up a little bit, which we've been talking about this evening. So maybe have that photo post explaining, that you're at the library, smiling next to one of your favorite authors, and you can talk about why this person's one of your favorite authors or something, and then you might do it, just a short text post asking someone a question, and then you might do some more heavy lifting stuff like a video, so there's that nuance, which is again the harmony in your content. Next, there is I, and that is intricacy, which is all about the detail. So in music, now you could actually correlate this to the videos that you do, right? What you could be a talking head, and that is fine. But you can then start to bring in detail, like when that happens, there's going to be a sound or a something. So there are sound effects when it comes to video, but then in music you might have, hold on, is that a tambourine? Oh, there's some percussion over there, so bring in the intricacy. And so in terms of how that is with this, it would be the sort of, in a way, it's kind of maybe similar to nuance, but it's just the variation that you've got. So you might have a weekly podcast, a webinar. Again, this is the biggest stuff, ebooks, but it is having that nuance. Again, you're not a one-trick pony. Yeah. So there's that. We're moving on to S, and that is style. Okay. So musically, I've got dynamism, which is volume in music, not just cranking up the volume, but if you listen to a song, depending on the kind of song, it might start with just a vocal, then this is added, that's added. And so when you think now about your content, regardless of whether it is a photo or a video or something, it's the different types of content in terms of the content itself. So are you going to motivate people? Maybe it's a motivational quote or something like that, or it's a book recommendation, or it's a case study. It's that sort of thing. It's all, you're in your lane, you're talking about your topic. You could say that, I'm going to do a book recommendation and I'm showing a picture of the book and it's a quote, or it could be just different ways of doing the same thing. You don't have to show a copy of the book. You can just hop on like we're doing right now and say, I just want to recommend a book, guys. So that's all about the style. So you can really mix it up. You can see how some of these things interweave. And then there is H, which is hone, which is polishing, perfecting. So in music, you're going to master, and you're going to, when you've got all those layers, you're going to make sure that the balance is right. Across all of the stuff, that you're not leaning too much with this, and the vocal isn't way above everything else. So similarly with your content, you want to just look at all of it and review it and think, okay, am I doing too much of something, too little of something else? Where can I tweak and adjust to get some balance across my content? So that is, I don't know if I stopped to breathe, but that's basically that's a rush through. As I say, I'm working on it. And yeah, so it's a work in progress, but in principle, that I think if you take a look at these things and take time to put your own work, your own industry, and sort of run it through that, you would find that you'd be able to perhaps answer some questions and deal with some niggles that you had and you couldn't quite put a finger on it.
I love it. I love it. And it's a really nice way to sort of do a self-audit, because literally you could use that framework and look at your content and just kind of say, okay, where am I at with this thing? You know, how you could review something and say, okay, I ticked the boxes here, but you know, I didn't do this. So I think that's a really good framework. And just like John's chair, you know, it's easy peasy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with these things, you know, how many frameworks are there? I mean, I'm listening to Brittany Hodak's Creating Superfans at the moment. And so I did a song for that book when it came out. And I'm listening to it at the moment. And it's just great. I mean, it's really, I like listening to books on creativity and, you know, inspirational creativity sort of space. And she's got an acronym which she calls the super model, which I think that's brilliant, right? The super model. But you know, you could come up with all sorts of acronyms. I don't think there's any one acronym to rule them all. So I think there's something to be gained by looking at all these different sorts of frameworks that people have and thinking, you know what, that really helps me. Because like you said, we're creatures of habit. And if we think, well, you know what, I could get overwhelmed and I don't know where to start, or you could pick a framework and run through it, you know, pick another framework, run through it. And you might find that, you know what, together, these two things actually, they help, you know, it's like, it's one in a bit of this and what, you know what I mean? So I think that there are loads of frameworks. This is not going to be the world's, you know, #1 framework. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if it were? But no, it's a work in progress. And I just want to encourage people to look at the people, again, like John out there, and take a look at the way people think through personal branding, content creation. And this is just one example of how you can do that and come out the other side. Hopefully, you know, if you felt you were a bit boring going into it, I think by the time you come out the other side and take the time to implement and test and pivot and all that sort of stuff, you know, I think you would have gone a long way to not being boring.
I love that. I love that. That's great. That's great. And so I know you follow a lot of like thought leaders. You read a lot of books, which, you know, gets you a godlike status in my book, because I love people that love books. So that's great too. But podcast, books, thought leaders, is there someone who you'd say they do a really good job of not boring content, like, you know, besides yourself, you tick all the boxes, Ryan, but who would you, if you had to recommend something to somebody watching or listening today, who would you recommend is a good person who's living it?
As an author specifically, you're saying?
No, just anybody out there. You just say their content in general, it doesn't put me to sleep. Who's a good example of that?
Sure. Well, I mean, okay, so books is definitely for another occasion, isn't it? Because yeah, there's so many books, but that is just one format. Yeah, content creators out there. I mean, someone if you're a sister from another mister, I've got a brother from another mother who's John Lindsay, and John Asperian actually put me in touch with him or recommended him, I don't know, 18 months ago, whenever it was. And my inclination at the time was, how dare this guy go and do parody songs? That's my territory. You know, that's what I thought. I thought it was my space. And however, we now have like truly become like brothers, you know, and just encouraging each other, talking, you know, off of LinkedIn and everything. And he does songs like mine, but his wardrobe is way, way better. I mean, this is my wardrobe. Okay. So it's whatever I wear with sunglasses on to hide the fact that I'm reading the lyrics because I can't memorize them, you know, whereas he, I don't know if it's his wife's wardrobe, his wardrobe, both of the shared wardrobe. So John Lindsay, I don't know, John, if you're out there or not, he might catch this later. Maybe we can look in the comments and I'll tag him, but look him up. Every Monday he puts out a song. He's in the legal space. And so he will speak about something to do with legal, or he might sing about, we're very similar. I think we just love to sing about the things we're passionate about. And yeah, he's a riot.
I love that. I love that. And I think this is a really great example for everyone that we learn to do by watching others. Like we kind of think, oh, I can't, we could get all weird and competitive. And it's like, oh, I don't want to talk to other live streamers. I don't want to talk to other video people. But we learn. And in my opinion, I'll see something go, ooh, I like that. And I'll reverse engineer it. How can I make that happen? And I think this is the great part about LinkedIn, is that it's not just about what you're putting out, it's what are you bringing in? What are you learning? And, I learn watching your videos. I learn, different podcasts to listen to, but techniques and different things. So actually, I think that's kind of the cool part. And I like to think, when I see something, what made me excited? Like, why did I like that? Because if I liked it, maybe I can emulate it and take that element myself. So what do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen stuff that I've done, and I've seen other people adapt theirs, knowing that they've seen some of my stuff. So that's a huge compliment, firstly. And I have absolutely learned, like jump cutting. I know it's not an old, sorry, it's not a new thing. But when I started, like when I got into video, I didn't know anything about it. And I could waste hours trying to record the perfect take because I didn't plan it. I just had bullet points. And I went around in circles, wasting so much time. And then I just saw other people doing this. I was like, you know what? Actually, that gives me permission, firstly. It takes this load off my shoulders. It gives me permission. If everyone's doing it, I think there's a Cranberries album, isn't it? Everyone else is doing it, so why can't I? I don't know.
I love it.
Someone can fact check me. Someone can fact check me on that. But basically, yeah, I think don't be so proud. This is something I've had to work through the years. It's one thing seeing what you do and copying it, adjusting it so it looks more like me, but very clearly I learned it from you. If that's the case, why don't I go out there and say, hey, I just want to say, Gillian, thanks so much. I learned this from your videos. I've started applying it to mine. Everyone else, check out Gillian. She's great. I think if we all just, there are people out there who are very humble, and that's great. But for me, it's been a thing, when you're trying to establish yourself and you're tackling the flipping, what's it called? Something syndrome.
Imposter syndrome.
So through the years, you got that, like I know, you sit opposite someone, you have a client. By the end of it, I mean, they're furiously writing down, they say, thank you so much, I've got all of this. And you're thinking, yet why do people feel this way? Why do we feel that way? Because we know we could have said 5 other things and we didn't, and that sort of stuff. So I just think knowing that this is almost the other side of imposter syndrome is, number one, you actually probably know more than you do, and you're probably better than you think you are. But the other side of it is that you haven't arrived yet. Actually, there is still some things you could learn, if at the very least, to just have some humble pie every once in a while. So, yeah.
That's good. That's great. That's great. So we've come to the end of our 30 minutes because it always just goes so fast. So sort of just kind of like bring it on home, Ryan. Is there any sort of last words of wisdom that you'd leave with everybody before we say goodbye today?
I think the first thing I would say is, look, you can look at your analytics and all that sort of stuff and see, like I think we've all whinged for the past year and a bit now, or at least many of us have, I have, about algorithms, and it seems like, why is my stuff not getting the same amount of attention it used to? That might be true. It could be algorithm and whatever, but we could actually just take a breath, look at our stuff and say, okay, what could I do differently? Am I bored? Because if you are bored with what you're doing, you cannot expect your audience to love it. It's going to come through. If you just deliver the lowest hanging fruit, simplest thing just to put something out, that can't last forever. So you've got to enjoy it. I think of those. I just saw a video today somewhere. Bon Jovi. on stage, I was like, wow, look how old he looks. And I'm like, and there he is, not looking bored. And his fans, not bored, singing the same songs from the decades, So what is it that you have got? And it's probably going to be more about you than it is about your content that people love. So that if you completely change the game, and if you, Gillian, for some reason didn't do video anymore, people love you for you, that they're going to follow you to that next thing. So I would just say, think about that. So that was a slightly different thing. Number one, are you bored? Because if you are, your audience probably is. But consider mixing things up a little bit. But just know that ultimately you are the core of your content, really, and just let that shine as much as you can.
Oh, beautiful. Love it. Love it. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here today, Ryan. This was really good stuff. Thank you, everybody who tuned in and anybody who will be listening on the podcast. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope you found this helpful. So we'll see you all again next week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.